Winter, 1941, Eastern Front. The cold killed more soldiers than bullets. Over 100,000 frostbite cases, 14,000 amputations. German records are chilling. This was not just a war of weapons, but a war against the elements. The cold was everywhere, indifferent and deadly. We're not here to recount famous battles, but to reveal the invisible war every soldier fought, the fight against heat loss. The deadliest enemy wasn't a man, but the air and ground itself. These are survival lessons, not just history. We'll see how desperate attempts at warmth often failed. Why did their shelters betray them? How did they battle an enemy they couldn't see? Every night was a fight for life, every sunrise a victory. The Eastern Front tested human endurance to its limits. By examining their struggle, we learn what separates life from death in the cold. These lessons echo through time, offering wisdom for anyone facing nature's harshest side. Understanding their ordeal is understanding survival itself. The scale of the fighting was immense, but the personal struggle against the cold was just as epic. The cold was a crucible, forging hard-won truths about staying alive. Let's uncover what it really takes to survive when the world turns to ice. Beneath the roar of battle, a silent war raged against heat loss. Soldiers fought not just the enemy, but the laws of thermodynamics. Every calorie of warmth was precious, under siege by the Russian winter. The air itself stole heat relentlessly. Blankets, straw, scraps. These were their weapons in a minute-by-minute struggle. A gap in a wall or a thin coat was a fatal breach. The cold poured in, merciless and silent. The human body was the front line. Heat always moves from warm to cold. Their bodies were furnaces in a world of ice. The challenge: trap that heat, create a barrier between themselves and the frozen world. This was survival, stripped to its core. Before a soldier could fight, he had to survive the cold. These lessons weren't taught in academies. They were learned through bitter trial and error. The principles of warmth are as unyielding as gravity. Ignore them, and you pay the price. What they learned about shelter would change everything. Soldiers dug into the earth for shelter, thinking it would save them. But many froze to death inside their own dugouts. The culprit? The frozen ground itself. The earth acted as a massive heat sink, draining warmth from their bodies. This is conduction, heat lost through direct contact. Lying on a thin blanket was like lying on a block of ice. No fire could overcome the relentless pull of the frozen floor. Shelters blocked the wind, but failed to stop heat loss to the ground. The result? Men would lie down to rest and never wake up. The lesson was brutal. Getting out of the wind wasn't enough. Survival meant getting off the ground, breaking contact with the cold earth. Insulation from below became the first rule of cold weather survival. Even a fire warmed only the air above, not the floor beneath. The soldiers learned, you can't fight conduction by heating the air. You must create a barrier between yourself and the ground. This simple realization saved lives. Insulate from the ground first. Learned the hardest way possible. The instinct was to pile on more layers. Blankets, straw, anything. but men still froze, even wrapped in thick bundles. The problem wasn't quantity, but quality. Loose materials like straw let air move, creating convection currents that carried heat away. Thickness alone meant nothing if air could circulate. Soldiers were, unknowingly, cooling themselves down. More bulk often made things worse, not better. The real need was to stop air from moving. The solution wasn't more insulation, but better insulation. Dense materials trap air in tiny pockets, preventing movement. The answer wasn't in piling on straw, but in finding a material that immobilized air. This was a counterintuitive discovery. The secret was density and stillness, not just bulk. The right material would hold air captive, creating true warmth. This principle would lead them to an ancient, overlooked technology. The lesson insulation is about trapping still air, not just adding layers. The search for the perfect material was on. The soldiers discovered the real secret. Warmth comes from trapped, unmoving air. Air itself is a poor conductor, if you can keep it still. Think of a double-pane window. It's the trapped air, not the glass, that insulates. The same applies to clothing and shelter. The goal: create as many tiny, still air pockets as possible. Loose straw failed because its air pockets were too large, allowing convection. The answer was a dense material with microscopic air pockets. This created a personal microclimate, holding warmth in place. The focus shifted from adding bulk to finding the right density. The right material would trap air so tightly it couldn't move. This was a scientific approach to survival. The search led them to rediscover an ancient technology. A material used for centuries in cold climates held the key. Simple, effective, and perfectly suited for the Russian winter. The soldiers were about to learn the value of felt. Soldiers noticed Russian peasants wore thick felt boots, valenki. Unlike leather, felt stayed warm and flexible. Soldiers quickly adopted them, realizing their superiority. Felt is made from compressed wool fibers, forming a dense web. This structure traps millions of tiny air pockets, eliminating convection. The warmth came from the still air, not the wool itself. Soldiers used felt for boots, shelter linings and sleeping pads. A felt layer on the dugout floor stopped heat loss to the ground. For the first time, they could rest without freezing. Felt was more than a material. It was a life-saving technology. The modern army learned survival from ancient wisdom. Density and trapped air were the perfect defense against the cold. This discovery led to a systematic approach to staying warm. From hard-won experience, soldiers developed the three-layer system. This approach is the foundation of modern cold-weather survival. The first layer wicks moisture away from the skin. Sweat is deadly. The second layer insulates, trapping still air with materials like felt or wool. This is the personal furnace, slowing heat loss. The third layer is the outer shell, windproof and water-resistant. Wet insulation is useless. The shell protects everything inside. This system manages moisture, insulates and shields from the elements. Born from desperation, it's now standard for mountaineers and soldiers alike. The three-layer system works as well today as it did in 1942. It's one of the most enduring survival lessons from the war. Master these layers, and you master the cold. The system is simple, but it saves lives. Mastering insulation revealed a new enemy: moisture. Water from snow or sweat destroys insulation's power. Wet clothing conducts heat away 25 times faster than dry. Sweat was especially dangerous. Working soldiers soaked their clothes, which then froze. The first layer's job pull sweat away from the skin. In shelters, breath condensed on cold walls, turning to frost and dripping onto gear. Dampness turned shelters into icy caves, even with a fire. Ventilation was essential, even if it meant losing some heat. Staying dry became more important than staying warm. A dry soldier in average gear fared better than a wet one in the best. The lesson: manage moisture relentlessly. Stay dry at all costs. Moisture is a silent killer. This principle is vital for anyone facing cold weather survival. The Eastern Front teaches a universal law. Survival is about respecting the physics of heat and cold. The secret to warmth is still air, not the material itself. Whether it's foam, down or felt, the principle is the same. Trap air, slow heat loss. Understanding this empowers you to judge any material's true value. These lessons, paid for in blood, are a blueprint for survival. Insulate from the ground, use the three-layer system, stay dry, ventilate your shelter. These aren't just history, they're life-saving actions. We must remember and apply them. Share this knowledge, it can save lives. The wisdom of the past prepares us for the future. Subscribe for more deep dives into survival science and history. The world is unpredictable, but understanding nature's laws gives us an edge. Be prepared. Master the science of survival.